Hey there, Jets fans. This is Matt Barbado, founder and editor-in-chief of New York Jet Fuel, coming at you with a bit of news on this Wednesday evening. The Jets have reportedly asked offensive tackle D'Brickashaw Ferguson to take a pay cut in order to help the team re-sign quarterback Ryan Fitzpatrick. So this is something that I think was probably inevitable given Ferguson's $14.1 million cap hit this season, but it's still a big deal, and it's still an important decision for Ferguson and the Jets to make, because if the Jets can somehow restructure Ferguson's contract or get him to take a pay cut, it would greatly benefit their cap situation right now. And it looks like a deal between the Jets and Ryan Fitzpatrick is still nowhere in sight. Fitzpatrick does not seem interested in coming down on his valuation per se, and the Jets don't seem to be raising it much either. So this is a very interesting situation. I am joined by my co-pilot, Max Marcella. And Max, to start this quick video off here reacting to this, do you think D'Brickashaw Ferguson should take the pay cut?
Well, I think it's hard to argue he shouldn't. And, D'Brickashaw Ferguson has been a great player in the Jets organization. He's been with the team since, I believe, 2006 was the year he was drafted.
Just finished his 10th season.
Just finished his 10th season. He's been with the Jets through multiple coaches, countless quarterbacks, a ton of ESPN coverage, and quarterback drama and all that. He's been with the Jets through everything. So he deserves, some good treatment from the Jets organization. I'm not so sure he's been receiving the fair treatment. I know Manish Mehta of the Daily News wrote a column about how Ferguson wasn't being treated fairly by the Jets. But put that aside, it appears that the Jets and Ferguson are going to work out a contract restructure, which is very fair because Ferguson really struggled last year. I believe his Pro Football Focus rating was in the 30s, which is just ridiculously bad.
Yeah.
And Ferguson isn't that anchor of the offensive line anymore. He's a borderline starter, maybe at this point not even that. But I think it's crucial to keep in mind, Matt, and I'm going to pull up a tweet from Rich Cimini of ESPN.com. He said that no negotiations have taken place, and the Jets have only made comments about the restructuring of the contract.
Right. I believe the Associated Press's Dennis Wazak said the same thing, that there has not been a formal request, just that the Jets have sort of, I guess, opened the conversation for
it's far from official, but it's something that needed to happen. I said Ferguson wasn't the player he used to be. And now it's a tough decision for the Jets because they have to work carefully with D'Brickashaw Ferguson because, yes, his contract should be restructured. He's not worth the $14 million that he would get paid without a restructure. But the Jets have to be careful because if they have a big swing and a miss, or if they cut D'Brickashaw Ferguson, then that's another big hole on this team. And you said Ryan Fitzpatrick and the quarterback position, which is yet to be solved. But it's more than that. You have the right guard position, which right now would be Brian Winters' job to lose, but he's, one of those borderline NFL starters. Then you have the two tackle positions, Ferguson, Bruno Giacomini. You have the tight end position. Yeah, you have yet to address the outside linebacker, the inside linebacker, maybe a cornerback. I think the Jets are comfortable with Marcus Williams and kind of a competition at that position. But this is a team with a lot of holes and no cap space. I mean, they're under $1 million, and they just signed Jeremy Ross, kick return wide receiver specialist. They're going to have no money, so they need to make a move. Ferguson's the obvious move. The question is, how can they handle their money? How much are they willing to give Fitzpatrick if they do reach a deal? And if Fitzpatrick returns to New York, how much money is left to spend?
Yeah, that's the big question is, yes, his cap hit is $14.1 million this year, but that doesn't mean he's going to lose all $14.1 million this year, and I think that's what Jets fans sort of fail to recognize. He's not going to, get his entire salary just vaporized for the 2015-16 season. It's going to get cut. The question is, how much would it get cut? And the next question is, what can they do with that money to sign Fitzpatrick? Because, I mean, you figure, say they cut Ferguson's salary in half, and that's only about $7 million. And that's what they already offered Fitzpatrick. So I'm curious how much of a pay cut the Jets would consider requesting from Ferguson. But there's no doubt in my mind that Ferguson's not an elite left tackle anymore. And yes, he has been one of the franchise cornerstones since he entered the league in 2006. He's probably going to be a Jets Ring of Honor inductee at some point after he retires. But in 2015, he was not a great left tackle. I wouldn't even say he was a good left tackle. He had a 32.7 Pro Football Focus grade. That ranks 60th among offensive tackles last year. So there's no doubt in my mind that Ferguson has fallen off. Now, do I think the Jets would be better off cutting him entirely? Probably not. He's a really great locker room presence. He's even the team's NFL Players Union rep. So he's a very good presence to have and a great veteran leader. And he's still a competent left tackle. I think he can still hold his own at the position. Obviously, at 32 years old, he's on a downswing of his career. But the Jets have to find some sort of happy medium where they can, it's worth paying him a certain amount of money for probably average to slightly above average play.
And what's important to note, Matt, is that restructuring Ferguson's contract does not necessarily – it's not a move designed for Ryan Fitzpatrick. And I know that's the Jets fans, the first conclusion they want to jump to is take money away from D'Brickashaw and give it right to Ryan Fitzpatrick. That's not necessarily true. Maybe that ends up happening, but I think the restructure was expected.
It's inevitable.
To say the least, it was inevitable. You knew as soon as the season ended, you took a look at that $14 million cap hit for a below-average left tackle. Not going to cut it in the National Football League, where it's a business at the end of the day. Ferguson's been a great Jet, but it's a business. So it doesn't mean Ryan Fitzpatrick is coming back. It doesn't. I mean, it obviously says nothing about their talks with the quarterback. So how confident the Jets are in their talks with Fitzpatrick is not reflective upon the Ferguson contract.
And Ferguson's not entitled to taking the pay cut. I mean, they're asking politely, hey, you want to help the team out here? Ferguson can say no. And honestly, after all he's done for the franchise, I wouldn't blame him if he said no. And not in like a, sort of stick it to the franchise thing. But I mean, that's a sizable salary, and eventually he'll get it back at some point, probably. But there's still a chance that he's, he gets his contract restructured and then he's cut and loses even more money. So D'Brickashaw Ferguson certainly isn't entitled to say no. The question is, and I wrote this in the piece on www.nyjetfield.com, will he take one for the team financially? Now, there's being a veteran leader and there's being a great guy in the locker room and being a great teammate, but it's an entirely different conversation when you're talking dollars and cents. And that's the key here. This is an entirely different situation. Yes, D'Brickashaw Ferguson is a great guy. Don't get me wrong. But I can't blame him for saying no to taking a pay cut because that is a sizable salary. It's definitely going to be his last major contract of his career at 32 years old. So I don't blame him if he says no, and I wouldn't be surprised if he said no. If he does, then he's truly a heck of a guy on and off the field.
Yeah, I think if he does, it's Ring of Honor, lock him up because, I mean, he's been a great Jet, as we've mentioned countless times. He's really done all he can to help the team, in their 2009, 2010, their AFC championship pushes. D'Brickashaw Ferguson takes a pay cut and even contributes to this team. Doesn't have to be the Pro Bowl left tackle, but if he takes that pay cut, which A, is contributing financially, and then B, goes out and does just okay at left tackle, just enough to let whoever will be taking the snaps, to let them have time to throw the ball. If he can do that, that'd be a tremendous, two-way gain for the Jets.
Certainly. Yeah, it would be the ultimate selfless move in a world where it seems like everyone's selfish. So if he does do that, it would be commendable. It would be great on the field for the Jets. I'm really curious what the number would be because you have to think Fitzpatrick is looking for at least $10 million a year. But I don't think they're going to reduce D'Brickashaw Ferguson's salary from $14.1 million to $4.1 million. That would be a drastic pay cut. So there has to be more specifics before I can really make a decisive decision on this. And it's an ever-evolving situation. It's a fluid situation. This Jets offseason has been turbulent, and this is probably one of the more expected things to come around this offseason. It might have taken a little longer than maybe we thought, but it was inevitable. So to wrap this up, I'm curious. Let's say that the pay cut is in an effort to re-sign Ryan Fitzpatrick, as Manish Mehta of the Daily News reported. Is it worth going through all this trouble for Ryan Fitzpatrick?
At this point, yes. I mean, who else is out there? You can take a chance on a quarterback in the draft, whether it be, a first-round prospect like Paxton Lynch, or, a guy in the later rounds like Connor Cook or Christian Hackenberg. You can take one of those guys, but do you really want to start a rookie? You can go back to Geno Smith, who is an amazing quarterback when he's playing in Miami. I'll say that. Or do you want to go with Bryce Petty, who's he's only played in 4 preseason games in his NFL career and looked like he had tons of room for improvement? The Jets are stuck at the quarterback position. Now, yes, they're stuck in terms of the number of options, but there's no market for Ryan Fitzpatrick anymore. Pretty much every team that's needed a quarterback has found their answer. Cleveland got RG3. They have the 2nd pick in the draft. Denver got Mark Sanchez. There's talks of them with Colin Kaepernick. San Francisco has Blaine Gabbert. So Fitzpatrick doesn't look like there's too much of a market outside of New York. If the Jets can get some money from D'Brickashaw Ferguson, then it becomes how much will they pay Ryan Fitzpatrick?
Yeah, this is just brutal because you're literally trying to make all this work for maybe 1 or 2 seasons. That's all Fitzpatrick is worth at this point. That's his shelf life. And that's what's brutal, is it's such a, like, in the NFL, you need to be looking long-term, looking towards the future, no matter what. But this is such a short-term move, and it's such an emphasis on right now. And unfortunately, you're right. And I don't mean that as in sadly you're right, but unfortunately the situation dictates where the Jets have to do this. They have to re-sign this guy, even though he's not going to replicate last year's production. He just isn't. I guarantee it. I will guarantee it in March. He will not put up last season's numbers. But, and this is April, by the way, so that's, but all right, that's fine. So it's such a short-term move, and you're really tying up a lot of your salary cap to a short-term move for a quarterback who's not going to be here in 2018. And that's the problem. The Jets can do whatever they want in the draft. They can draft a guy like Lynch or Cook, or trade up for a guy like Carson Wentz, Jared Goff, whoever, if they really feel like doing that. The problem is they're still tied down right now to the short term. And I don't want to say this is a debilitating move regardless, but it certainly doesn't set you up well for the future when you're trying to clear cap space left and right to sign a guy for $12 million a year for 2 seasons, who's not going to be a part of your future. And that's just the quarterback market, I guess. So you can thank quarterback inflation for this just mess of a situation the Jets are dealing with right now.
Yeah, in 20 years when, you're taking your football 101 class in college, it'll be titled The Great Quarterback Inflation of 2016. It seems like everyone's getting paid. However mediocre you are, everyone's getting paid. Fitzpatrick might be the next. Whether it's from the Jets or not, that remains to be seen. That's keeping us on our toes. So quickly to recap, Matt, the Jets have asked left tackle D'Brickashaw Ferguson to take a pay cut and restructure his contract after an average at best 2015 season, and possibly the money they save could go to Ryan Fitzpatrick. But we'll see.
Yes, we will see, and this is a developing situation, so be sure to stick with New York Jet Fuel throughout this entire process, throughout the rest of the offseason, and including the NFL draft. We'll see if the Jets maybe say, forget about Ryan Fitzpatrick, let's go out and draft our future quarterback. So we'll see how this plays out. Stick with Jet Fuel for all the news and updates you'll need. You can follow us on Twitter at New York Jet Fuel. Follow Max at mmarcilla98. Follow me at Real Matt Barbado. And, of course, like us on Facebook. We post a lot of content on Facebook as well as Twitter. So be sure to stick with us for any updates regarding Ferguson, Fitzpatrick, etc. Jets offseason never stops, folks. This has been a Jet Fuel video.